Welcome to a very special episode of UCRD Reviews. Today I have a P-Bandai 8th MS Team version anime figure. Now, when I was a kid, if you asked me what mobile suit in 8th MS Team I wanted most as a figure, it was this one, the MS-07H-8 Gouf Flight Type version anime. Now these Gouf Flight Types I believe were the last flight types to be produced in the One-Year War, and these were mostly used for escort missions and heavily based on the Gouf Custom. They were a very formidable opponent, which we saw in the Battle in 3 Dimensions short, and I've always loved this design. I thought it was one of the coolest things to come out of 8th MS Team, and I had to wait a very long time to have a figure of it, but I finally have got it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. I am so happy to finally have this in my hands. The H8 Gouf Flight Type. What a neat looking figure. These big giant legs down here, almost like a dom. All these thrusters, these 2 wings. Very, very cool. So the head will come forward about that far. It'll pop off, which we don't want to do. It'll come up about that far. It'll do a full rotation, and I'm going to swing it back this way and make it easier. And the top of the head can be removed, and the mono eye can be turned quite a bit. So we'll go ahead and recenter that. You do get a replacement antenna, but of course you do want to be careful with the antenna that you already have. The chest moves forward about that far. Doesn't come back much at all due to the backpack, and you get almost a full rotation out of it. Looks like the bottom part stops short a bit there. So decent amount of articulation. You get some good side to side, little bit of chest flex there. The arms will come up about that far before they start really hitting the head. Obviously they'll do a full rotation. The shoulder armor is hinged. We have a rotating joint up in here in the arm, which will rotate around 360. You do have decent elbow articulation. You have the hard point for the 3-barrel Gatling gun, and I believe you have a hinge back here in the hands, and then a ball joint holding them together. Down here in the skirt armor, these are hinged here. They don't have a whole lot of movement. They come up about that far. You have a hinge for this skirt armor piece that's connected to the cables, and then these wing flaps are hinged as well. You have 2 effect part compatible thrusters that move a tiny bit, and then you have 2 up here in the backpack, as well as 2 hinged wings. These are again ball jointed but don't move a whole lot. You have your stand piece down here, 2 little hinged flaps here. The legs, we'll go ahead and move the skirt armor out of the way as much as I can. Legs will come up about that far. You do have full hip rotation, which is nice, and you have those version anime hips that come forward as well. Pretty cool. And speaking of coming forward, you have a little bit of knee articulation, big giant legs, so I wasn't expecting much there, but it looks like it's single jointed. And then you have this piece that's ball jointed. These I don't know what these are called. Big verningers here, might be dust filters, something along those lines. Feet will come down about that far. They don't appear to have toe articulation, but it looks like they'll come up a little bit, and then you have decent side to side, nothing crazy. You see this armor piece inside here kind of moves around with the foot as well. You have these little motors here, fan motors for the hovering capabilities. You have little flaps back here. This is effect part compatible down here with the hover unit. And yeah, it looks really great. It's, didn't have a ton of like paint detail, just like the other 8th MS team stuff, and that's okay. I think it looks real nice as it is. You can always add stuff to it. It doesn't come with a sticker sheet, but many people in the community get pretty creative with this stuff. I really like it. I think it works well. I might be super biased, but I think this one's pretty solid. So let's go ahead and see what this actually comes with. So we'll get this out of the way. We have the hand rack, 2 different sets of opposing hands, heat sword hands, and Gatling shield hands. So pretty nice there. We have the 3-barrel machine gun, same exact one as the Gouf Custom, same features, same complaint that the magazine is not removable. It just attaches to the left arm via a unsightly peg, exactly the same as the Gouf Custom. Same with the Gatling shield. It is exactly the same, has the same features. The rotating handle here, it attaches to the machine gun right there. We have the heat sword. Again, same thing. It stores in the shield. The Gatling components are removable. If you recall in my Gouf Custom review, I complained about this bracket still being there because in the anime, when the Gouf Custom dumped the Gatling components, this bracket was not present on his shield. This is, however, accurate to the Gouf Flight Type, because in the Battle in 3 Dimensions short, it did have this bracket, and the heat sword still had storage capabilities. So I can't harp on this as much in this set. And lastly here, we have an interesting accessory for a completely different mobile suit. This is the backpack for the Easy 8. It is the exact same backpack as the Ground Gundam, but it is in Easy 8 colors this time around. So I brought out my little Easy 8 here, and we can actually get this attached. If I can do this correctly, just have to have it on the right way. And it'll just plug right in like that. So there you go. So if you want your backpack for your Easy 8, you just have to buy a Gouf Flight Type, which may not be a bad deal. And lastly here, even though it's a P Bandai, we do get 4 effect parts, which is quite nice. And they are all the angled peg thruster effects. And these can go on any of the effect part compatible thrusters that we pointed out earlier in the review. So pretty cool. So we have a nice little Gouf lineup here. We have the Gouf Flight Test Type, the Gouf Flight Type, and the Gouf Custom, since this one is kind of a mixture of these 2 figures on the sides here. So comparing it to the Flight Type, you can see the legs are much bulkier, and the Gouf Flight Type had its weaponry in its hands, but you can see there's some design similarities, the fins especially on the back, and these thrusters down here. But very interesting. The Flight Type here is much bulkier, and then we can look at the similarities with the Gouf Custom. I believe the only things that got carried over from this figure were the tops of the arms here. This whole arm got carried over. This one's different due to the lack of the heat rod. The head is actually different. The top of the head's the same, but when you go around the back here, the back of the head is indeed different. Obviously the backpack's different. The thighs, I believe, are the same, but then of course the legs are completely different. Skirt armor's different. The chest is different. So this piece is the same, but then when you get down to the cockpit, it is different, and of course all of this is different as well. So the weaponry is the same, just recolored, so we can take a look at that. Yeah, so you can see that the shield is just recolored to match the coloring here, but Very cool to finally have all these together. So being a P Bandai, the Gouf Flight Type fetches a decent price tag of $72.68 before shipping. However, it is a fantastic figure. I think I'm just super biased with this one just because I've waited so long for it, but I think this is a fantastic figure. The weaponry is carried over from the Gouf Custom, and my one complaint about the shield bracket is actually not so much of a complaint with this one since it is technically anime accurate. We don't get a heated blade for the heat sword, but yet again it was shown in the Battle in 3 Dimensions short that it used a cold blade in combat, so I don't know why that's a thing with these mobile suits, but that's how they operate. It does come with all the weaponry that it needed to. Some firing effects would have been nice. Being a P Bandai, the fact that we got effect parts at all is kind of nice, which is kind of sad to say, but the figure itself looks great. The design looks perfect. The coloring looks right. You know, I think there's very little wrong with this one. I don't have hardly any complaints about it. And you get a bonus Easy 8 backpack too, so if you want that backpack for your Easy 8, this is a nice figure to have to buy. So thank you for watching the review. Let me know if you picked this one up. Let me know if you've been waiting for this for like 20 years, just like I have. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I'll see you next time.